Hey guys, welcome back to the Business Straight Up with Scotch and Ramen podcast. Today, I'm super excited about this one. We're joined by Andrew Obrecht, who is the co-founder of YYC and YEG Cycle, which are a series of studio gyms in the province of Alberta in Canada. Super excited about this today just because of what you've done with the brand, some of the things that you've done in a very difficult space, some of the great things you're doing for the community and the people around you and other entrepreneurs. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. So maybe we can just kind of get everybody started. Tell us a little bit about YYC, YEG Cycle, and kind of the things you guys are involved in.
For sure. I mean, I'm very humbled that you say, the things that I've done, but it's taken a massive community, not only everybody that we have internally as far as our team. Right now we have just over 270 people that work with us and for us at the studios, at our 5 studios.
Awesome.
And then also a biker gang of many, many thousands, right? But for those that don't know about YYC and YEG Cycle, we like to kind of think of it as almost like a Vegas nightclub with spin bikes in the room. So we do have spin studios, but it's written on our walls that we're not in the business of spin. We're in the business of so much more, and really about community connection and impact.
Right. Cool. So how did you get into it? What did you wake up one day and say, I'm going to open a spin studio, or how did this all come about?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it only takes a certain amount of scrolls on my Instagram to see kind of where I came from. And if you look far enough back, it might not make much sense to you. So back in the day, I was at U of C. I went to University of Calgary. I'm born and raised Calgarian. I went to University of Calgary and I did my international business degree there. I also played football while I was at U of C, and at the time when I played football, I was about 262 pounds at my biggest. Yeah. Shaved head, just kind of a unit of a person, very different version of me back then. And so at that point in time, I went to the Montreal Alouettes in 2009 for training camp. I was not your typical spin instructor or what you would kind of think of it as at that point in time. And so after that, I was going to some yoga studios in Calgary and always kind of in the fitness world. But at that point in time, they were opening up a couple spin concepts in Calgary and approached me to be an instructor. And at that point in time, I thought to myself 2 things. I thought, one, I hadn't done too much spin. At some local kind of big box gyms I had. And number 2, I didn't really love cardio. But I knew I needed to do it, right? For football players, athletes, especially with football, from what I experienced, you either go one way fitness wise or another way when you're done playing the sport. And I wanted to make sure that I was accountable to my own fitness. And I thought about it and I thought, I loved coaching people. I loved motivating people. I loved connecting with people. Energy was my jam. And there was really, at the end of the day, I thought to myself, there's nothing negative that would come from this. And that decision of leaning into that curiosity has led me to where I am today.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, have you always had kind of that feeling that you wanted to be in business? Obviously, you went to school for it, but that entrepreneurial spirit is kind of one of those things that, do you feel that you learned it or that you always kind of had that burning inside before you got into this, or did it just kind of naturally come together? How did that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate to have 2 amazing parents who are entrepreneurs as well. So my dad is a master chef from Vienna, Austria, and came to Calgary with $70 and a knife set kind of thing. In fact, he moved to Toronto first and then came out to Calgary with my mom. And my mom's in natural medicine and energy healing. And so I've grown up with parents that are entrepreneurs, and the whole going to work at 9 and leaving work and shutting off work at 5 p.m. is just not something that I've been brought up with. Right. There is that kind of work-life integration that many entrepreneurs talk about that for me, I'm always thinking about my brand, and I'm always thinking about the studios, and I'm always thinking about this community of people that we have around us. So yeah, I'd say it's always been within me to kind of really take that risk and be an entrepreneur.
So what was it like, making that decision? You were approached after football. Let's do this spin thing. Let's get into it. Did you ever have like a hesitation, or did you just kind of go with it? What was that experience like? Did you think about it? Were you nervous?
Yeah, for sure I was. Again, when I kind of, let me visualize or let the audience visualize this, I was 260 pounds, shaved head, and jumping on the spin bike. That's not something that just is normally seen, right? And especially someone that had done 2 spin classes before, but it really was hanging on to that thought that there was nothing negative to come from it.
Right.
And certainly there was a lot of nerves. There was a lot of, I have this saying that at first people ask you why you're doing something, and then they ask you how you did it. And at that point in time, within the fitness world, I had a lot of, of my boys that I used to play football with, that once I was finished university and kind of getting into a few other ventures and starting spin, to teach it, certainly I had some of my boys that said, hey, have you heard Obrecht's teaching spin? And along with it, in the fitness world, there's a lot of preconceived ideas of who an instructor is. If there's a male instructor, he has to be of a certain sexual preference. These are things that you approach within the fitness world, and so certainly there was a lot of people that asked me, like, why are you doing this? And so that developed a pretty tough skin, and also kind of just challenged me to believe in what I was doing, because I really was experiencing something amazing in that room that was so much more than just that spin class.
Right. Was it ever just about the money?
No.
So, at what point did you realize that there was so much more to it? Were you a year in? Were you right away? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the process kind of happened that I started teaching, and certainly it was a roller coaster. Like, I remember I had, at one point in time, one person in my class, and I brought that bike up onto the stage, turned both bikes around, and we had like a one-on-one spin class, right? Yeah. Whereas a lot of people could almost apologize to that person coming in and saying, like, I'm sorry, there's not more people here. But you have no idea what that person went through that day that they came to get off their chest or disconnect from, right? So really reflecting on that. And when I started teaching, the classes went from like, 1 person to 5 people to 7 people to 5 people to 10 to 15 to 17. And I was like, I made it. This is amazing. To like 2 people to 3 people, you kind of go through those roller coasters. And really what I realized was that it wasn't about that spin class. It wasn't about the spin bike. It was just the platform to what happened in that room. And, it was a platform for positivity and passion and connection and community. And I actually was talking to one of my first motivators at YYC, and she said, you got to write that down. That's like your mantra. And so within our studios and within our walls, you actually see those words. In fact, you see the mantra when you walk in, that we're not in the business of spin classes. So it was my belief that, if I found people, obviously as I developed kind of my passion for what was happening in that room from following my curiosity, I knew that there was something bigger there.
Right.
And then as we got into opening up YYC Cycles and YEG Cycles, I just knew that if I found people that were kind of like me, and not physically, mentally, whatever it was, but that people that maybe had never taught spin before, but really wanted to make a positive impact on people's lives, that health and wellness was an important part to them, whether or not they currently had it or not. I mean, I needed to do this because I wanted to stay in shape or get in better shape, right? Yeah. And then 3, that there was something about this experience that would change their lives similar to the way that it's changed mine.
Right.
We would just take off. It wasn't kind of a sequence of events, if you say, like, is it just about the money, or was it ever? It wasn't. I just thought that, hey, we can really build momentum and build a really great community if we find the right people that care about it in the same way that I do.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that make YYC and YEG Cycle unique, but maybe share with us some of the things that you think. I mean, it's about community, it's about the impact that you have on people, but what is it tactically that you guys do that really sets you apart?
I mean, it's first and foremost, it's the community, right? It's the impact that we want to make on the community. So before we even opened our first studio, we wanted to make an impact on our community. And how we did that is we created our giver campaigns. And our giver campaigns are every Friday we have a class. It's a $10 class. And at the end of the year, for every person that comes into our classes, we donate $10 to charities. But furthermore, what we do is we change that charity every quarter. Even taking that further, the biker gang, who is our people that actually ride with us, this is that community that we've created. The biker gang actually votes on the charities. So they decide where the money goes towards. So they actually own that side of the business. In the last 5 years, just over 5 years, we've raised $640,000 towards these charities. And it's everything from, people love like animals and babies. That's kind of like they gravitate
Right.
there. But so we've had like the Humane Society in Calgary, Zoe's Animal Rescue Foundation in Edmonton, the Children's Hospital in Calgary. We've had the Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter.
I mean, $640,000 is amazing.
It's huge.
Like that's a big chunk of money, especially for a local business, a grassroots initiative. That's pretty awesome. Is that really what binds that community together even further?
I totally think it is. And I think we want to, and we've seen other entrepreneurs take similar or different approaches to what we're doing.
Right.
And I always believe that success leaves clues. Like if every single studio started doing this charitable initiative, what an amazing impact we could make on people's lives. Like for instance, when we open up a new studio, the whole first week is giver classes. So they're all $10 classes.
Yeah.
We raised in one quarter for Zoe's Animal Rescue in Edmonton $20,000. That equaled their annual expense for food for their animals. So this can make a huge impact, right? When you talk about exposure for some of these organizations, we did one was a foundation that started up in Edmonton at the U of A, and it's called Camp Firefly, and it's the only national camp for gay, bisexual, transgendered youth.
Okay.
And which is amazing to see our community vote on that charity.
Get behind that.
Yeah. And raise a lot of money and awareness for these organizations that otherwise, we're slowly creeping out of a recession. But we started our first studio March 17th of 2014. That was at the start of the downturn. And so, yes, for a local business to be able to say, hey, we're going to allocate one class per week. We're going to do some charity classes around that and so on, and fundraising initiatives. But just kind of taking a small part of your business can create a huge impact. So to answer your question, that's number one of what differentiates us. And I think it's just, it is the inviting culture that we have that kind of breaks down barriers to provide this kind of third space that Starbucks talks about. But this third space that people can feel very safe and welcome. And, there are places out there that, if it's your first time or first 5 times, you're not allowed to sit in the front row in a spin class. That boggles my mind because people are coming in there facing challenges outside those doors that they don't want to face another challenge as soon as they get in, right? Yeah. So we have my mom comes to spin classes, my girlfriend comes to spin classes, and everybody in between, you know. So we have a very inviting culture, and then we also have a product that is that's challenging, certainly, but achievable. We actually have a 2-month training process for all of our motivators. Okay. So it's quite an investment for these individuals to become motivators at YYC and YEG. But that being said, we also have a medical director, Amy McKinnon, that she works with the Canadian Olympic team, has Coalition Co. in Calgary. And she looks over all of our movements to make sure that they're fundamentally and physiologically correct.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff out there. It's kind of the Wild West sometimes in the fitness industry, and there's a lot of movements out there that you may not get injured after your first class, but some of those repetitive motions and movements, you might find yourself injured after doing that for 3-4 months. And so I truly believe that we have a moral obligation to the riders that come into our studios to make sure that what we're telling them is safe for them to do.
And it's founded in science, right?
Totally. Cool. It's like going to a doctor, right? If a doctor tells you to take medicine, well, the majority of the population will just say, okay, well, you know more than me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. In our classes, we could tell someone to turn around and spin backwards, and a third of the room probably would follow, you know?
Yeah.
And another third would say, like, this is weird, but okay. So we want to make sure that that's another huge fundamental to who we are, is just the product that we provide is safe, challenging, but achievable.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So along that vein, I mean, that uniqueness is deeply rooted in the people that come to the studio, but of course the motivators and so on. So how do you go about hiring and retaining those motivators and the people inside of your business? How do you find them? What do you do differently, you think, that helps you find the best people to perpetuate that vision and that concept?
Totally. I mean, it's if you guys haven't already, I know that you're about to interview Ryan Gill from Communo, and he's a good friend of mine, and he actually gave me this saying at one point in time that I always hold on to about momentum, right? Momentum is nearly impossible to start, but once you have it, it's also nearly impossible to stop.
Right.
And so it's been really interesting over the years to see kind of that momentum build, where there's really no difference between the people that work for us and the people that walk in through the door. Okay. You know, our employees, they are our customers. And I think a lot of the best businesses out there, that's kind of the way that it is. It starts with people walking in the door and being advocates of your brand. And then they want to be
part of it.
They want to be part of it, and they want to be further kind of integrated in that. So we have a lot of people that's how it happens. But twice a year we have tryouts for our motivators, if we talk specifically on the motivator side.
Yeah.
And it's a process that we have people submit video applications, and a 60-second video application. And the philosophy behind that is that there's a lot of new people that come into our studios, right? And we want to make sure that you know, someone who's applying can provide a really great first impression.
Yeah.
You know, and not only that, but someone that can get outside their comfort zone. So we get video applications. Last one that we did in Edmonton, we had 50 people apply. And then from there, we brought in about 40 to tryouts. Yeah. And from tryouts, we took 10 into a training group. So it's pretty exciting to see that people want to be
There's
involved.
Competition there.
Yeah.
They're willing to go through the steps to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we always provide feedback for those that don't make it into a training group. We always provide thorough feedback on their tryout for things that they can work on for the next tryout. So cool. we kind of invite them back to, if you are a fan of hockey, it's like invite them back to the farm team. That's the biker gang, right? Yeah. And with information on how they can improve. And we have motivators that are currently teaching that tried out 2-3 times. So for them to come back and for us to see that actually they implemented some of our feedback is huge.
Well, and that commitment to getting better and to
precisely
obviously wanting to be a part of what you're doing. Is that ever neat?
Yeah, and you know, if they spend 2 months training with us, typically, you know, the expectation is that they'll stay with us for a few years. Right. You know, there's a lot of trainings out there for spin that the participant actually pays for that training. Yeah. You know, we don't charge for that training. It's our investment and our trainer's investment in time, in hope that that's reciprocated by their investment in being a motivator for us at our studios. So,
right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the great things you're doing and what's awesome about YYC Cycle, but I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the less than shiny things that have happened. And the first one, I think, well, maybe is there a challenge or something in your mind that kind of sticks out? Like, where was that inflection point in building the business to where it's at that you were like, really questioning, do I push through this, or has there been anything like that for you?
I mean, when people ask me, am I surprised at where we're at? My answer is no, I'm not surprised. Certainly I'm very happy with it, and it's been such an amazing experience. It's come with a ton of challenges as well. But just like when I was talking about earlier on, and kind of that vision is that if we had the right partners, if we had the right people involved with us that had the right alignment with where we're going, nothing could stop us, right? Yeah. And again, not without a lot of challenges. And so, I mean, over the last few years, we spent 1.5 years working through a partnership buyout. So now I'm with my partner Grady Topak, and I would take a bullet for him, and we've really grown through that experience of that, and it was a great opportunity for our third partner to kind of venture off and do what he wanted to do with his ambitions and his passions, and I think it was a really great opportunity to support him through that, and then also just realign the company with where we wanted to go.
Because can you tell me a bit about that? Sometimes bringing in another partner or changing the structure is a big challenge for people. How did you go about that? Like, what did that timeline look like? Obviously, you can't say everything, but how did that process look? You had an established business. Now you're thinking, I might bring someone else into this. Mm-hmm. That's a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
How did you go about that?
I mean, we got through it with a lot of lawyers and a lot of negotiators and money. So, but
you paid for it.
I mean, all jokes aside, it's what it is. Like sometimes it's easier getting married than divorced.
Absolutely.
And so, I think that you just, we always had to maintain the mindset of being the bigger people and kind of looking for the common ground as far as like this is so much bigger than a partnership as well. We have a biker gang that we're responsible for. We have 270 members of our family who work for us that we're responsible for, and the culture that we have is so important. So it was a lot longer process than we had anticipated, 1.5 years. But for us, I think the biggest thing is we started 3 partners from the beginning.
Okay.
So when I parted ways from the studios that I had originally just taught at, I had found out about 2 guys that wanted to get in touch with me, and they were in the oil and gas world, and we all kind of went to school together, but didn't really know each other at YYC that much. And they were passionate about having a business together. They saw spin becoming more popular, but hadn't taught a spin class or didn't kind of know the inner workings that I had experienced. And so that's why we came together, and it was a great opportunity, and we grew the business for 3.5 years, together until our third partner kind of approached us and with this opportunity for him to kind of follow his passions and what he wanted to do. And so we really did it all together at that point in time. And I think for Grady and I, we've built up such a culture of leaders that we really looked at each other and said, what we have is so important, that looking at bringing on another partner just is outside of our realm right now. Like I said, through these experiences that Grady and I have gone through, I would literally take a bullet for him, and he would do the same.
So you didn't bring him in after that?
No.
Grady was one of your initial
partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just had your third partner that moved on to other things, and here you are. Cool. Yeah. So I think one of the things that a lot of smaller businesses consider often, and obviously you guys have, is expansion. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, going from 1 location to 2 to eventually 5, what lessons did you learn there? What was some of the stuff that worked well, and what would you maybe look back and say, okay, cool, I know that for next time?
Sure.
What lessons are there?
Definitely a few. I think for a studio, one thing that we learned from our initial studio was with one studio, especially around like holidays or summer, you got to make sure as the entrepreneur that you know every single facet of the business, right? So it was very important for, like I had taught spin before, but it was very important for me to make sure that Grady and Warren at that point in time also knew how to teach, and Grady still teaches and is a phenomenal motivator. And But when we got to Christmas time with one studio, all of a sudden Warren and Grady and I, the three partners, we were all teaching 10, 11, 12, 13 classes per week, which is pretty exhausting.
Quite a bit,
because people are away. But hey, you gotta do it. You got to do it as the owner. You got to make sure that you can go in and fold towels and clean washrooms just the same. And also, it not only it's nostalgic to look back at it, but you have to know every single facet of the business to be able to actually put those expectations on other people when you start hiring. So with one studio, you just got to be ready to do all the work that you have to do. Second is that when you open up a second studio or a second location, it's a lot about capacity, right? You're not going to open up a second location and do double the business. You might actually do half, especially at the beginning, right? And so let's say that you're at 80% occupancy with your studios. Well, you got to make sure that your business can sustain 40% at either location for a good period of time while you build up, because it's kind of a little, it can be you're, robbing Peter to pay Paul, in the sense that, if your studios are within proximity of each other, you might actually split that market. Mm-hmm. At the same point, there is a benefit to having, multiple locations. Then you have a little bit of an economy of scale. And then opening up in another city is a whole nother kind of spectrum of things, right?
Was there any aha moments in there? Like, did you make any big mistakes that you're like, crap?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We had our ceiling fall down in Edmonton when we opened up a studio. So I think that was a really good indication of, you want to get it right. You only have one opportunity to make a first impression. And we recovered really well with that. But we had one studio up in Edmonton, and there was a lot of decisions made with regards to kind of the build out of that studio that might have been rushed, or might have, corners might have been cut, and we made the decision to make it right in the end. But initially, we had a wood roof, and we hadn't kind of sprayed soundproofing materials on that substrate before, but we spray foamed some stuff on the ceiling, and although it was foam, it has a little bit of mass to it. And we opened up the studio, and all of a sudden we were doing a class, and pieces of the roof were falling down on people.
Oh my God.
And so, you really learn these lessons that not only, number one, own it. If there's a mistake, own it and make it right.
Yeah. What do you think motivated the rush? Was it you had committed to a date, or?
Yeah, I think that's what it was at that point in time. Those decisions were definitely rushed, and I think the excitement was around it. But ultimately, I mean, it's so funny. I just think about that Fire Festival Netflix documentary that's like, you might have one person that's like, no, it's going to happen. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. And then, it just kind of steamrolls, right?
Where really,
where really you look back at it and you're like, shit, for your brand, it's always worth doing it right.
Yeah.
And if you have to push things back, just say sorry, and make up for it.
Figure it out.
Yeah. But that was roof falling on people. That's not a good thing.
What was it like moving into a new city? I mean, again, that's another thing sometimes, especially with local type businesses, that we think we've got a great brand here. People know us. People love us. Let's expand somewhere else. And what was that like for you? Did you do anything unique to ensure success in Edmonton, or was it kind of a, we made it happen here, let's do it there?
Yeah, I think that the first decision is there a community there that is grounded in the same values that we have? Rather than looking at demographics, with our people, our biker gang, we really focus on value graphics. So, like I said, I've got my mom coming in and I've got my girlfriend coming in. One's older, one's younger. I'll let you decide. And but at that point in time, it's really important that there's a culture and a community that value what we want to do. Two is that we want to be hyper local. So with even our studio names, we're YYC in Calgary, YEG in Edmonton. If you open up a YYC in Edmonton, it's not going to do so well.
That wouldn't work.
But really, at the end of the day, it was important for us to land in Edmonton, bring on people that were part of the community there. Again, they didn't have to teach spin before. We've trained 155 motivators, of which 10 had experience teaching group fitness classes before. And so finding people that were really rooted in the community up there, building them up to be great ambassadors for our brand, and then most importantly was to find opportunities to make an impact in that community. So when we opened up our studios up there, all of our giver charities in Edmonton are Edmonton focused.
Right.
Calgary, it's Calgary focused. So we really wanted to kind of land in the community and say, hey, we're not landing here to just earn revenue the first week or, right off the bat. We actually want to make an impact in the Edmonton community right off the bat.
Yeah.
In hopes that you can welcome us with open arms kind of thing,
Yeah.
And we have a phenomenal community up in Edmonton.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think in the fitness space, but even in entrepreneurship in general, what would you say the biggest misconceptions are? What are some myths that you'd like to dispel?
Ooh, that it's not easy, and I think that's just such a Hallmark card kind of thing.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing is do you want to build, like as an entrepreneur, do you want to build a job for yourself, or do you want to build a business, or which is okay to do either way, right? But there's the opportunities to scale your business. You have to really understand the expectations that you want out of your business, because some businesses can become a hobby, some businesses can become a job, and some businesses can become an organization.
At what point do you think you made that distinction? You got into it with open arms, kind of just waiting to see what happened.
Yeah.
Was there a particular point in time where you're like, this now has to shift from a job that I've built myself to an organization or a company before that?
For sure.
When was that?
I think it was when we opened up our Kensington studio and really we started seeing what was happening with this momentum. And I think for the three partners at that point in time, it was seeing other people beyond myself having success with classes. And certainly right at the beginning, I had a little bit of clout in the industry as far as people knowing who I was and knowing my classes and understanding the consistency of my brand, Andrew Obrecht.
Right.
As a motivator or instructor, leader up there on that bike, I would teach at least 7 classes per week. And for the first 2 years, I taught 750 classes within 730 days.
Right.
So at some point in time, and this is the same thing with entrepreneurs, you just gotta trust your people. You have to allow them to follow a little bit of the same process as you, as this whole 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 15, 2, 5, 2. You can't take over and do it for them. So really trusting in our motivators and our team to build their own momentum and to build their own identity, their own connections. But once we started seeing this happening, we really leaned into that, right?
Yeah.
And Grady and I still don't have our foot off the pedal, but it's really growing a team of leaders that can lead leaders.
Right. And did you build the systems for that first, or did you kind of evolve as the leaders started to emerge? What did that look like?
I think we kind of evolved. I think we had the mindset and we created a system as far as training and the training process. It's remained fairly similar to day one.
Right.
We have the same playbook. We might create new plays within that playbook, but the playbook's there. But the internal systems, as far as our whole team and operating 220 classes per week right now within our 5 studios and operating 364 days a year, except for Christmas, it's something that definitely it's worth investing into the systems first, so that you don't have to cut 7 times, right? You'd rather measure 7 times and then cut once.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely something that we always look, rather than us being firefighters with something and being reactive, if something comes up, it's probably an indication of multiple instances of that opportunity to correct it. And then we always take that back, say, is there a system that we can create around this? And then we introduce this whole system to everybody, right? Yeah. And then hopefully to
get feedback,
prevent future occurrences.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other challenges, lessons that you want to share? Anything else?
I definitely think that the whole expectation side of things is really something that entrepreneurs need to check into.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
And what I mean, I've got a saying that, those that are watching right now that know me, they're like, oh, great, he's going to do the Shakespeare thing again. But the whole saying of expectation is the root of all heartache. And that's a Shakespeare quote. He might have said it in a different way. But yeah. Expectations are essential to have in any relationship, personal, business, but as long as they're seen in the same light. Right? And so clear expectations, as long as the two parties or all parties involved have the same expectations, then no one's led to heartache. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, not only with themselves, but with their teams and their people, we're tentative to just be open with the expectations that we have from a relationship, from a business, from an employee, from a team member. And that can lead to heartache in the end and miscommunication and so on. So being very clear with expectations on a connection and relationship side, but also on a business side. So really looking at your numbers, really looking at if you can say, oh, well, we're going to be 80% occupied right up at the start. Well, revisit that, look at where you're getting your information from so that you're not month 3 or 4 and saying, why am I not going out and buying myself a new Mercedes or a new Audi? And then all of a sudden you get disheartened and you stop working as hard anymore, right? Or you start leaning on your people that you have to get it done for you. You need to be willing to put in the work if you expect your people to actually follow suit too. So
cool.
Yeah.
So from a communication standpoint, are you suggesting then that your leadership style and your expectation setting is just based on transparency? Is that
for sure? And radical transparency. I think it's all about intention.
Right.
Yeah, I really truly think it's all about intention and understanding that. I have this thought of like, if I were you in your shoes and in your heart and in your head, I would literally do the same thing that you would do. We're different people for that reason, right? So I can't be upset with you when you do something and it wasn't aligned with my personal values or expectations if I haven't had the opportunity to talk with you.
Right.
And then having that transparency to understand the expectations from that situation and have a commitment from either parties moving forward to do your best to meet those expectations if it's reasonable, So certainly transparency is everything. Understanding that the other person is human and they'll also go through their mistakes. But those clear expectations are essential.
Cool. So exciting stuff. What's next? You've raised a ton of money. You've obviously, really solidified, I think, your brand in both cities. Now what? What's on the roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to navigate these waters of the fitness industry.
Yeah.
That people say like, spin studio. How did you build your spin studio to be so successful or to find success? I hate saying so successful, but to find some momentum and some success. And I said, well, it's because we're not a spin studio. It's because we're not in the business of spin. So I think for us, what's exciting to come up is that we have a goal to raise $2 million by 2025. For organizations. That is really the root of what we do, is creating that impact. Right. Through creating that impact, it's a responsibility of Grady and I to grow our company. And so that means more studios. We have a goal of having 15 studios across Canada within 10 years. We have another one coming up into the University District next year. But the biggest thing is that we don't want to grow quicker than our people allow us to. Yeah. We don't want to risk everything that we have for something that we don't. So if we end up having 6, 7, 8, 9 studios, but we raise $2 million by 2025, we'll be very happy. Because that's a huge win, because that means that the impact that we're making within the studios that we have is there, that the connection that we have with our people is there. We would really hate to lose sight of who we are at our core just for bragging rights of numbers of studios.
Right.
So yeah.
Cool. How do you define success going forward? I mean, obviously you've given me two kind of metrics, but how else do you define success now? Because obviously the business sustains itself, there's growth and so on, but how do you define success?
Yeah, for the business, it really is that connection and impact, right? So for me, I truly believe that the definition of success is the amount of people that we can positively impact, and that's not only the organizations that we work with, but the people that we work with and that are on our team. This has been something that, it's an interesting thing to balance, where we have a lot of people that are school teachers or accountants that work for us, and this is their fun job.
Yeah.
So how do you have them treat it still like a job? But it's great when people say, oh, this is my fun job. It's great to build a business off of people that love to say, I can't wait to get out of work and come and teach a class or come and work at the front desk. And so that impact is really important. And then the second definition of impact is just the leaders that we create. So to grow this business and to ensure that it continues to be successful, we need to make sure that we're leading leaders to lead other leaders, Right. And so we have a lot of motivators and key leaders and crew who are our front staff who have found, amazing relationships and have gotten married with people that they've met at YYC and YEG and now have families with these people, or have found business ventures, or have found business partners, or have created their own businesses throughout it. Like, really seeing our leaders continue to be leaders is where we're going to continue to define our success.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I understand that you do a little bit of public speaking, which is somewhat clear by this conversation.
I try.
So where can people find you? Where can people continue to follow and learn more about your story and watch your success?
Yeah, thanks. I'd love to continue doing more and more public speaking. I think it's a great opportunity and something that I really enjoy doing. Yeah. People can find me mainly on Instagram, Andrew _ my last name, Obrecht. Okay. And then just through the YYC studios and so on, I love when people come up and come to my class and get to experience me within that setting. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the main one is through my Instagram account, and feel free to shoot me a message.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Andrew, thanks a ton, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you joining us, and hopefully everybody watching got some insight. And any questions or anything, obviously you can reach out to us and Andrew.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.